Hi everyone, this is Social Change, lecture number 4. This lecture accompanies the reading by Ritzer, chapter 2, The Past, Present, and Future of McDonaldization, pages 28 to 53. Okay, let's start. So, when did McDonaldization begin? Ritzer argues that this process did not come out of nowhere, but rather it was preceded by a series of social and economic changes, such as bureaucracy and rationalization of our lives. So, bureaucratization, let's talk a little bit about that, how it is making our lives more rational. So, bureaucracy is a large organization that is divided by tasks staffed by officials who are ruled according to hierarchy. Officials have certain responsibilities and have to act according to rules and written regulations. Officers in bureaucracy act in accordance with impersonal written rules rather than due to personal loyalty, right? So they do a job. Because bureaucracy has a formal structure, it allows for greater efficiency. We are forced to choose the best means to figure out a problem. Tasks are then broken down, and everyone is responsible for a different part, and of course dependent on others to do their parts. So this is a Weberian term. So let's talk a little bit about Weber's theory of rationality. Weber argues that bureaucracy is just a component of the rationalization process, which he calls organization of our lives, our social, political, and economic lives, based on efficiency, following logic, and with help from technology. In other words, our world is determined by efficiency, predictability, calculability, and non-human technologies that control people, which are the basic 4 dimensions of McDonaldization. Weber argues that formal rationality means that people search for ultimate means to reach a goal, and the way to reach that goal is shaped by rules and regulations. In the past, people had discovered things on their own, usually with help from religion or other subjective sources. But today, people can use institutionalized rules to help them or to dictate to them what to do. So 4 basic aspects of McDonaldization can be seen in bureaucracy. One of them is efficiency. Bureaucracy is the most efficient structure for handling large numbers of tasks that require lots of paperwork. There is calculability. Quantification of things is important. Reducing performance to small tasks helps people reach success. Often quality, though, is sacrificed. So finishing the product, basically, or finishing the task is more important than quality with which it was handled. Then there is predictability. Due to rules and regulations, we know what will follow, how people will behave, and what will be provided and when. And then, of course, there is control. People and tasks are controlled by rules and regulations. Everyone has specific jobs, predefined tasks, and we are even controlled by technology. Think about computers or even cameras. And of course, because there are 4 dimensions, there's also this hidden 5th, irrationality of rationality. Bureaucracy is often dehumanizing. Ourselves have to be contained, emotions have to be controlled, and people often feel like they can't behave like human beings. Bureaucracies also can become inefficient because of rules and regulations. Think about the red tape issue. Quantity over quality, having to do things over again. And there's always anger at non-human technologies that can lead to sabotage. Weber calls this irrationality of rationality the iron cage. Bureaucracy can lead to the entrapment of people, where people are denied where we are denied our humanity. And bureaucracies can grow and run more and more aspects of our society to the point that they are running us rather than us running them. So everything is rationalized, from workplaces to education to even recreation. And he gives an example of something that we think of as a recreational activity, which is a cruise, and how rationalized that is. And you can find that on page 32. Then I included this little image of iron cage because I think this is what it represents. Then there's this example of the Holocaust as an example of McDonaldization. And I can understand why many of you might have issues with this. So, and I myself have little issues with this. However, I do think it as creepy as this example is, it actually shows something very bureaucratic. So Ritzer argues that even the Holocaust has basic characteristics of rationalization and therefore McDonaldization. It was the effective mechanism for destructions of millions of people. Bullets were inefficient because sometimes bullets didn't kill somebody, right? You had to use several bullets to kill somebody. So gas became the tool. Victims also had to perform a variety of tasks themselves, such as choosing the next groups of people that will be sent to death. It also emphasized quantity, how many people could be killed in the shortest possible time. Of course, there was very little attention given to quality of life or death. Murder here becomes a routine, assembly-like process where trains get there, people line up, go to the gas chambers, and later on workers clean up dead bodies for systematic disposal. And then there's, of course, management by non-human technologies, where we're talking about factory systems where raw materials were humans and end product was death. Chimneys, railroads, and gas, all these things controlled us. However, of course, Holocaust in itself is a perfect example of irrationality of rationality because it represents complete dehumanization of humans, where we are murdered in the most mechanical of ways. And as creepy as and extreme as this example is, it is organized around principles of rationality in the process of McDonaldization. All right, so we talked about where did this all come from, and it starts in the scientific management, defining the one best way. And this management was developed by Frederick Taylor in the late 19th and 20th century. Taylor saw a need for greater national efficiency in many aspects of human life. So he was looking for the optimum or best way to do the job, and he underlines a series of steps to get there, from finding skilled workers to studying their actions, tweaking those actions to find optimum way to do something, and eliminating false and slow movements, and then combining effective moves and good tools to do the best way. There's also emphasis on predictability, seeking an approach that everyone can use. There's emphasis on use of non-human technologies that allows that although controlled workers, these non-human technologies can control workers, they also made workers more efficient because workers produced more but didn't have to be paid more because their jobs actually got easier. However, again, it is dehumanizing system where people are seen as expendable and treated as such. Workers were forced to use just a few of their skills and abilities, and most of their skills go unused. Today, the scientific process is extended to codification of how things should be done. Think about training manuals that are taught to managers, and then these managers teach them to new employees. Then we move towards the assembly line, turning workers into robots. So the assembly line comes into existence at the dawn of 20th century, and it revolutionizes the way we do things. It was pioneered in the automobile industry by Henry Ford, who wanted to save time, energy, and money. And he saw that greater efficiency would lead to lower prices, higher sales, and of course, greater profit to him. Ford gets the idea for automobile assembly line from Chicago meatpacker workers who used overhead trolley systems to butcher cattle, and basically he takes this idea and builds it in his company. And it leads to quantification of many elements of productions and maximizes the numbers of cars produced, because every worker now on the line does its job, and therefore each car is predictable and identical to another. Non-human technology allows maximum control over workers, and there's also limited time for each task to be done. And as we have seen, specialization of each task allows for replacement of human workers with robots. Again, here's the irrationality, because we have the dehumanizing setting of work and dehumanizing work itself. However, of course, assembly line represents a remarkable step in rationalization of production and becomes widely used in manufacturing. So Ritzer moves on and shows this example of McDonaldization in Levittown and shopping centers. And Ritzer argues that availability of cars makes not only fast food restaurant possible, but also growth of suburbia, mass-produced suburban houses that can lead to instant large communities. He talks about the Levitt and Sons, where workers do the same jobs at different locations, where entire housing site is rationalized, where all materials are brought to the site, and each construction series follows series of defined and rationalized steps. Everything is cut to the site, everything is brought to the site, cut to the site, even colors are already created. He calls this the creation of McMansions. Some critics argue that it creates disturbia, same as dehumanization, but today many residents customize their houses, so not everything looks the same. Another example is this fully enclosed shopping malls that are components of our rationalized world. Today, of course, they're a global phenomenon, and Ritzer argues that these shopping malls and McDonald's chains actually go hand in hand because malls provide predictable, uniform, and profitable venues for these restaurants or these chains. And without these chains, malls would have empty spaces, right, and would not be able to exist. So how does McDonald's takes over, right? So we have the creation of the fast food factory. So McDonald's is created by two brothers, Mac and Dick McDonald, in Pasadena, California in 1937. They base this restaurant on the principles of high speed, large volume, and low price. They have short menus, use assembly line procedures for cooking, and break down preparation of food into small little steps that can be learned quickly. Each worker has a specialized job and has to follow rules. Ray Kroc doesn't invent McDonald's principles or ideas for franchise, but he becomes their franchising agent and he builds an empire. He takes specific rules and procedures from McDonald's brothers and he combines them with principles from other franchises, bureaucracies, and scientific management, and of course, assembly line. And he's a genius because he brings it all together. So where his innovation lay is the way that he franchises McDonald's. He maximizes central control and uniformity through the system by granting franchises one at a time and rarely granting more than one franchise to a specific individual. In this way, he has a total control over what's happening. He also encourages innovations and sees if these innovations work. He spreads them through other franchises, things like Big Macs and Egg McMuffins. He also offers, he preaches uniformity and even starts full-time training centers, right? Which you can read a little more about here. So McDonaldization and contemporary social changes. McDonaldization is not only successful due to its attractiveness and its advantages, but also due to several other factors. Material interests, such as economic gains and aspirations, like lower costs and higher profits. Culture of the U.S. that values McDonaldization as an end in itself. We value all these efficiency, calculability, predictability, and control, and we see McDonald's as part of it. And the degree to which McDonaldization is in tune with important changes taking place in society. Think about the speed and efficiency, how we always like to have things right here, right now. But we also want to know what we're getting, right? So that's a big part of it. And think about this technological change in ATMs, how we do things, how we go about doing things. We like this. This is a part of our culture now. Other major changes in McDonaldization in the era of post. So critics of McDonaldization argue that modern phenomena such as McDonald's are likely to disappear in the future. Ritzer, however, argues that not only is McDonaldization here to stay, but it's actually influencing society at an accelerating pace. Some argue that we moved beyond industrial society to a new post-industrial society, meaning that we moved from producing goods to providing services. And today's economy is dominated by services related to education, computers, healthcare, and so on. We create professionals, right? However, that is not to say that these low-status jobs that are crucial to McDonald's disappeared. If anything, they actually expanded. And others argue that this new post-industrial organization has arisen and coexists with this classic industrial organization. Excuse me. So in post-industrial organization, we have leveling of hierarchy, blurring of boundaries between organizations, more integrated and less specialized structure, and so on. This is all great, but I think Ritzer argues that mechanized and specialized jobs are not only alive, but well and growing in McDonaldized service organization. So maybe, basically, we have coexistence of these two worlds. And finally, are there limits to this process? What do you think? Is there an end in sight? What do you guys think? Think about this while you're going over your assignments for this week. I'll talk to you guys very soon.